It was her boss. Ophelia's heart sank. She stood up, smoothing her blouse, and followed him, feeling the eyes of her colleagues on her back. As she walked to his office, she heard audible whispers coming from her colleagues. Her name echoed from one cubicle to the next as they giggled and mocked her. "Ophelia is always getting into trouble. I wonder what she has done this time." "Susan, I thought she was your friend. Why don't you talk to her?" a lady said. "Never. That thing is not my friend," Susan hissed. "Wonder what she's done this time," she heard someone murmur. Ophelia entered into Mr. Harrison's office, the door closing behind her with a decisive click. He motioned for her to sit, but remained standing, towering over her. "Do you have any idea how far behind we are on the quarterly projections?" he yelled, and Ophelia jumped in fear. She swallowed, trying to remain calm. "I reviewed the reports this morning. We're making progress, but what? But you are incompetent. But you are lazy. But you are inefficient. Answer me!" Mr. Harrison shouted, his eyes narrowing. "Progress is not enough. We need results. Your team has been lagging, and I expect better from you as the team leader. I have always known you are incompetent. This is your last chance. If you don't pull it through, you'll get the boot." You won't believe that Mr. Harrison, who was shouting with such passion, was desperate to have Ophelia. He had told her about his feelings months back, but she rejected him. Now, all he did was ridicule and scorn her every attempt at excellence. In his mind, he hoped that when he did so, she would finally succumb and give herself to him. But none of that happened. Despite his constant nagging, she remained with her decision. "I understand," Ophelia said, choosing her words carefully. "We've been dealing with some unexpected challenges, but I'm confident we can turn them around." Mr. Harrison leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. "Confidence is not what I need, Ophelia. I need action. I need results. If you can't handle it, maybe I should find someone who can," he shouted. Ophelia felt a pang of fear, but she met his gaze steadily. "I'll make sure we meet the targets, Mr. Harrison." "See that you do," he said, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. As she came out of Mr. Harrison's office, the comments started again. The never-ending whispers were stuck in her subconscious. She struggled to block them out as she headed for her cubicle. "She got chewed out again," said one of them, a woman with smirk. Her name was Clara. "That's what she gets for being a seductress," another said, and the ladies began to laugh. "Thank goodness I can't hear any more insults," she said to herself as she breathed deeply. One breath at a time to calm her nerves, she repeated her motivational mantra, trying not to explode. But somehow, in the middle of trying to get herself together, she heard one say, "She's always struggling to keep up." This voice belonged to James, who sat a few cubicles away. "I don't know why they keep her around." "Probably just feels sorry for her," Clara responded with a laugh. "She's so pathetic." She knew when all the ridicule began she could easily pinpoint it. It was when the executive director of operations asked her out, and she refused him. But her colleagues did not know. That all they knew was that she accepted. The ladies that were warming his bed got furious and started spreading all sorts of rumors. And you know how rumors are. Like wildfire. It turned and became something else. Ophelia's hands shook slightly as she typed, but she refused to let their words break into her concentration. She was above them in all things. She tried not to believe their words, but it plagued her from one hour to the next. As hours passed, she successfully got their words out of her head and was making progress in her work when suddenly she heard her name. "Ophelia," the managing director called her. She turned and responded, "Yes, sir." "See me in my office in 5, he said as he walked away. She wondered what he wanted. He had never called her to his office before. Was she in trouble? She cleared her throat as she began to hear the whispers again. "I'm sure she has gotten herself into another trouble," someone said. "Maybe this time they'll finally let her go. She's the one weighing this company down." Another one chipped in as she hurriedly walked to the managing director's office. When she got there, she knocked on his door twice and heard a "come in." So she went in. The man gestured to a seat in front of him. She took a seat. Her eyes wandered around his office as this was the first time she had ever entered it. He cleared his throat to bring back her attention. "Do you know you're due for promotion?" he started, looking at her as his eyes twinkled. She nodded vigorously to his question. "Yes, sir, I'm aware." "Do you know why you would never get a promotion?" he asked again. This question puzzled her. Was he trying to say she would never get a promotion? Instead of concluding, she decided to continue listening to him. "No, sir," she responded. "Well, it's because, as beautiful as you are, you haven't dated any of the top boys in this company. How do you plan to succeed? Do you think others who are here are not doing the same? Aren't you tired of not being promoted?" the man asked her. She was lost for words as she looked at him intently, wondering why he was bringing all this up. At the same time, she was very furious, but she kept reminding herself of the company rules, which said, "Don't start a fight or you'll be sacked." Sitting there, she was ready to beat him down and insult him, but in reality she was still too skinny for a big man like him. So she decided not to say anything. "Ophelia, it's not hard. Someone like me would be interested in you if only you gave me a chance," he said with a smug look on his face. "Ew, a chance? How can I give him a chance?" she said to herself as she tried to keep her face straight. "Give me a chance and consider yourself promoted instantly. You know I hold so much power here and you won't want for nothing. I always treat my girlfriends very well," he said. She cleared her throat after his last words. "Sir, in order for me to keep respecting you, I would rather not date you. Dating you will be crossing the line, and I don't date my employers. As long as we're in a working environment, I would suggest you don't bring this up," she said, trying to be polite. "Then consider yourself not promoted this year either. You may go," he said, dismissing her before she could get another word in. She got up and walked slowly to the door. She wondered what kind of man this was. So was this what the ladies do in this company? I would never sleep with my boss no matter what. I am different from the others. I'm special, she said to herself as she straightened herself up and walked with her head held high toward her cubicle. She didn't mind the whispers. She was happy she was able to refuse the offer. By the time she sat at her desk, she realized that it was already the end of the day. For such a hectic and emotionally draining day, I think a shot or two would be just the right fix, she said to herself as she packed up her files and got ready to leave. She got up from her desk, carrying her coat and handbag. She made her way to the parking lot where her car was. She turned on the ignition and made her way to the alley bar, which was 15 minutes away from where she was. As she got closer, she saw the neon sign of the alley bar flickering, indicating that she was at her location. She walked to the entrance and pushed open the heavy door, the sounds of clinking glasses and murmured conversations washing over her. She made her way to the bar, her steps unsteady, weighed down by the accumulated stress and criticism of the day. She spotted a bar stolen in a good position and went to sit on it. The bartender was busy serving others, and when he was done, he gave her his attention. "Whiskey neat," she said to the bartender, her voice tight with exhaustion. As the bartender poured her drink, she glanced around the dimly lit room, hoping to lose herself in the anonymity of the crowd. Ophelia took a sip of the whiskey, relishing the burn as it slid down her throat. The warmth spread through her chest, offering some numbness from the strain of the day. She closed her eyes and began to sway her body to the music as she sat. She had plans to forget all her sorrows and torments just for 5 minutes. She replayed the events of today, one after the other, and downed her glass of whiskey. It seemed to push the pains of today away as she placed an order for another one. As soon as her shot of whiskey came, she gulped it down almost immediately and asked the bartender for another shot. A thick baritone voice caught her attention. "Hey, beautiful, do you mind dancing with me?" he said as he also moved to the music. "No," she said bluntly, as she took another gulp of the shot she ordered. In her haze, she noticed the man had paid the bartender some money. "Her drinks are on me," he said to the bartender. "I still won't dance with you." "Go away," she slurred. As she swung back and forth. "I just paid for 5 shots and you still say no? You owe me a dance," he yelled, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her. Suddenly, a hand pulled the man back, and before he knew it, punches were aimed at his face. The man did not have time to assimilate what was happening before the punches. He just lay there, begging. He wore a brown leather jacket, black jeans, and some rocket boots. He looked like a biker. He kept punching the man in the face until he had his fill. He got off him and turned to face Ophelia. His eyes twinkled, but this twinkle was familiar. She could recognize him despite her drunken state. It was the delivery guy from the other night. What was he doing here? Was he stalking her? This couldn't be a coincidence. "What are you doing here?" she slurred. He walked to her in slow strides with that crooked smile on his face. She could swear she was dreaming. She had drunk way too much. She probably was seeing things. He came closer to her, lifting her chin and gazing at her intently. He made her insides quiver, and she blinked rapidly. She tried to maintain her composure, but how do you maintain your composure under the influence? "You are so hot," she found herself saying. "Are you an angel?" she slurred, raising her hand to touch his face. But somehow her hand could not go far. Instead, it found its way to his chest. She could feel his thick build underneath as she licked her lips and started to breathe hard. He was definitely hot, but she knew she was going to regret this night. That's if she ever remembered what actually happened. With his face inches from hers, she felt his breath heat her face. It smelled of mint. She gasped as she struggled to hold his gaze. "Well, well, well. I can see you're not so far away from trouble. That is no surprise," he said. She staggered forward and he held her in his arms.